s01e04.
It's time now for the fourth programme in the series highlighting times when things didn't go exactly as planned. It's presented by Jonathan Hewitt. Can I take that again?
Sorry, no. In any case, when you're broadcasting, it's important that you say what you mean and mean what you say.
And what about you, Mrs. Davies?
Well, I had it last Saturday night for the first time ever, and I thought it was very disappointing.
Did you? Disappointing?
Yes.
For the next 15 minutes, well, 14 or so to be strictly accurate, it's bloomers and bloopers from my collection of clangers on radio stations all over this green and pleasant planet. As we're dipping into the output of Babel that clutters the airwaves of 5 continents, we may as well start with a news item on the BBC World Service.
Mr. Wheeler recognises the political difficulties involved in any legislation affecting public order. He comments that in a free society, any political group must be free to meet at election time in support of its nominated candidates, however loathsome their wives may be. Their views may be, rather.
There's some who might say he was right first time. Still, what's a slip-up between friends?
This is the 6 o'clock news. An intensive police search has been mounted for 3 men missing on Port Phillip Bay. Here's Colin Denovan. Oh, dear, what have we done? We're reading the wrong news. That's why you haven't got it, lad. I'm sorry. The lead sheet was right, but that's the news from the last lot. We'll start again.
Let's turn our attentions to the domestic bliss of a good old consumer programme. Food, drink and related delights. From soaking in a leisurely hot bath to the flashy business of fast foods. Do you live in a flat spin at 45 RPM, or do you prefer the gentler tempo of 33 1/3?
Good afternoon and welcome to Shop Hounds. I'm Andy Patton Foster. And I'm your parents. In today's programme, we'll be looking into the problems of buying shoes. The footwear code of practice came into force in this country 3 years ago. And I've been looking into just how successful it's been since then. On a lighter note, I think you'll be surprised by what I've discovered about check cards. And how the law applies to them. What about you, Jo?
Well, I've been finding out how many different sorts of bread we're eating these days and looking at the increasingly popularity of other natural foods. Also, the problems of keeping clean when we investigate bars. But that's later.
In the meantime, some up-to-the-minute food news, if you'd like a bit of a change from meat.
The fish market at the moment is very, very catastrophic. Fresh fish... can't even say fish. Fresh fish is in very short supply indeed.
And most people seem to eat fish at the end of the week. Sometimes Thursday, usually Friday.
In quarter of an hour's time, Easy Street. A chance to relax in the company of Sean Street with music for a very sunny Thursday afternoon. Of course, it's not a Thursday afternoon, it's a Friday afternoon, but nevertheless, still a sunny one.
Well, now we know what day it is, it wouldn't be a bad idea to see what the weather's doing.
It's 5 to 8 now, and the weather forecast for the whole of the country, we join Anne Purvis at the London Weather Centre.
Hello? Hello? Right. Good morning. Well, another warm day ahead for much of the country, especially in southern parts, and here it'll be largely dry.
Local radio stations sometimes run a service of free classified ads. Lots of bargains for sale by the listeners. You can often pick up some really marvellous snips.
And another card from Bristol from Mrs. Brown. She wants to get hold of a mains clock radio. That's what she'd like, and she'll pay up to the limit. Well, the price is negotiable, really, according to the condition.
To take away a Saab 96 Saloon in Organe. It's a 1974 model. It's in immaculate condition, it's claimed. The MOT is until August. Very good tyres, stainless steel exhaust. And Organe is the new way of spelling orange. So that Saab 96 is orange in colour.
For sale, a Syndico orange striped baby buggy with wind and rain. I do apologise.
And a mere 3 days later, guess what came up for sale?
A Syndico recline... Oh, I think you better read that one.
Shall I? Why, what's wrong with it?
Oh, yes, I think I better, actually. A Syndico recliner buggy. As new, £45, including rain covers.
I suppose if you feel you're heading for an impending disaster, it's not a bad idea to pass the buck over to a colleague who you know can be relied on never to make any embarrassing mistakes.
The Master Blaster. The Master Blaster? Yes. Oh, it's even the Master Blaster.
From Stevie Wonder, it's a short lurch to the king himself, and the time when his marriage was on the rocks.
In California, Elvis Presley has been granted a divorce from his wife Priscilla after 6 years of marriage. The grounds were irreconcilable differences.
In other words, they didn't get on. And as long as there's live radio, there'll inevitably be those moments when things don't go quite as smoothly as the people in charge would like. Take, for instance, the art of getting all the facts on an international news story.
Dr. Banda, what is the purpose of your visit?
Well, I've been asked by the Secretary of State to come here.
Have you come here to ask the Secretary of State a firm date for Nyasaland's independence?
I won't tell you that.
When do you hope to get independence?
I won't tell you that.
Dr. Banda, when you get independence, are you as determined as ever to break away from the Central African Federation?
Need you ask me that question at this stage?
Well, this stage is as good as any other stage. Why do you ask me why I shouldn't ask you this question at this stage?
Haven't I said that enough for everybody to be convinced that I mean just that?
Dr. Banda, if you break with the Central African Federation, how will you make out economically? After all, your country isn't really a rich country.
Don't ask me that. Let's leave that to me.
Well, which way is your mind working?
Which way? I won't tell you that.
Where do you hope to get economic aid from?
I won't tell you that.
Are you going to tell me anything?
Nothing.
Are you going to tell me why you've been to Portugal?
That's my business.
In fact, you're going to tell me nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
So it's a singularly fruitless interview?
Well, it's up to you.
Thank you very much.
To which I reckon the reply should be, for nothing. Coverage of an outdoor event requires a large number of hours with a portable, battery-operated tape recorder, tracking down the right people to interview. There's also the task of selecting exactly the right words to give a clear and concise radio picture of the scene.
We're now waiting for the clock here actually to strike 12 o'clock. And around me at the moment, I'm simply surrounded by, I should think, hundreds of people who've come along here today to the host of the annual fair. We are now awaiting the arrival of the Pretty Maid. The church doors are still shut at the moment, and by the clock, I should think we've got about, Bill Matthews has said, about a minute or so to go. Now, you know who the Pretty Maid is, so...
I should do.
Is she an attractive girl?
Oh, something like myself. Very nice.
And I always thought he sounded like a fella.
I'm actually outside of the host of the church here now. The bells are just beginning, and the Pretty Maid is just making her way now down to the fair. So we'll go along with the town crier, and we'll just go into the fair. Linda, what's it like to be Pretty Maid of Hosterley?
Oh, it was last year's.
Yes. What's it like to be the Pretty Maid last year?
Fantastic.
Oh, well, he's sure to bump into the current Pretty Maid sooner or later. And when he does, he can record an in-depth interview.
Linda, you're actually this year's Pretty Maid. What's it like to be the Pretty Maid of Hosterley?
Quite overwhelming.
Can you tell me a little bit about the actual service? Did you have the blessing in the church, did you?
No, it's outside.
But are there a lot of young girls that are interested for this kind of thing, would you think?
Oh, I should think so. It really is fantastic.
Is there something you think very special about it, do you?
Yeah.
Linda, all success. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, now we know all the facts about Linda, it'd be good to get some local colour to complete the picture.
Well, we're actually now walking into the actual fairground with the Pretty Maid, and quite around at the moment there seems to be absolutely hundreds of people, and she's now actually making her way into the actual fairground. Mr. Trace, you're the actual mayor of Hosterley. What do you think of this year's ceremony? Do you think there's something special about it?
No, I don't think there's anything special at all. I would have thought it was more or less the same as what normally happens.
Nothing daunted, let's try some other good folk, and maybe, with a little bit of luck, we'll land the big one, a positive interview.
We're actually now here in the fairground, and here's Alfred Wood come up from Plymouth. Now, you're actually at South Ash at the moment. Have you got anything there like it?
Not quite like this, no.
Now, you were previously the Methodist minister here. Have you got anything like the Pretty Maid in the Methodist church?
No.
Ah, well, if at first you don't succeed...
Standing quite close to me now is Dr. Pearson. I believe, Dr. Pearson, something quite interesting happened to you in the last 24 hours. You've made a retirement, have you?
Yes, I've been retired now for about 12 days, and I'm just relaxing now and watching the portrait of the Pretty Maid in the fairground in Hosterley.
Dr. Pearson, thanks very much indeed.
He's not having much luck, is he? But then if he forgets about the local personalities and ventures into the crowds, he really can't go wrong.
Excuse me. Have you been watching the Pretty Maid ceremony?
No, I haven't actually. I missed it. I didn't realise it was on.
Do you think there would be a very interesting ceremony if you'd been there?
Oh yes.
Are you going to enjoy yourself at the fair?
Well, actually, I'm going home now. I just came up here for the morning.
I see, and you've just missed all that's been going on so far.
Yeah, it's a shame, really.
Never mind. Perhaps you'll come again next year.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed.
Now, I don't know if it's my imagination, but I detect there's a faintly frantic note creeping in. Or could it be that the batteries in the tape recorder are running low and affecting the speed of the tape?
Excuse me, can you tell me what you think of Hostelry Fair this year?
Oh, I haven't been in here in more than 2 minutes. I got off that bus. I'm only just coming now for just an hour, just a dentist, that's all.
Good, right. Oh, it's not too bad anyway, thank you. Excuse me, what do you actually think of Hostelry Fair this year?
Very good.
Did you see the Pretty Maid ceremony?
No, I didn't. No.
Are you going to have a ride in the roundabouts, Preston?
No, thank you.
Why's that? What do you actually think of Hostelry Fair this year?
Oh, just usual.
Well, I, for one, would give our intrepid reporter 10 out of 10 for dogged perseverance, if for nothing else.
It's said that Mr. Primarolo punched Mr. Simpson on the last day of the winter term. Mr. Primarolo, who's head of humanities at Hartcliffe, was talking to Mr. Simpson about the marking of registers. It's thought that they argued and a fight occurred. Mr. Simpson had to go to hospital for treatment. Mr. Primarolo was... It's said that Mr. Primarolo punched Mr. Simpson on the last day.
Just occasionally, for reasons only the engineers can explain, you get an equivalent of a crossed line between the studios.
A band would obviously take their material to a record company or to a music publisher to see if they're interested in their product. And also, of course, record companies are always on the lookout, and music publishers, travelling around the country looking and listening to new
7:30
bands.
this evening, Free and Freeman, an hour of rock music presented by me, James.
I don't know who's getting that plug in.
Who let him in
Sounds
here?
like David Freeman to me. We'll try and get reconnected with Richard Spragnell. What's happening out there? Can anybody tell me? Are you still there, Richard?
And I'll also be playing.
It's in everywhere. That's Dave Freeman. OK, I'll tell you what, we'll break off and we'll try and reconnect with Richard Spragnell from New Milton in a moment.
And that's about it for this session. Many thanks for both of your letters. I'll get round to answering them within a year or so. In the meantime...
Keep those letters coming in. We love to hear from you, don't you, Dennis?
We do indeed. So, until next week, from me...
And from the British Broadcasting... From the British Broadcasting Corporation...
I'll just say... Don't fail to miss it.
Can I Take That Again was devised and presented by Jonathan Hewitt, who thanks all the inadvertent contributors. It was produced by Jonathan James Moore.
Okay, that's fine, sweetie.
Music just for you.